Basically, a class is the name that can be assigned to a mode and it can be replicated. So what is used to replicate things, anything, you can regard it as a class. Just like a mold. You can have a mold that is used to make cake, so like a cake, and with that mold you can make as many cake as possible. So with any class, you can make as many of that particular thing that will be as identical as the main one as possible. So class is, they call it a blueprint, or basically a mold you use to create things. So when you're looking at a class is composed of two parts. You have what is called the attributes, which is basically the external features of the class, the appearance, what it looks like, the color, um, the weight, the height. These are attributes. Then you have methods or functions. These are actions that can be performed by the class. So these are basically the two types of class. So in class, we have what is called there are different types of classes. We have what we call the abstract class. So the idea of an abstract class is a name that can serve different aspects of the same thing. Let me break it down with an example. So when you talk about shape, you have different shapes. You can have a circle, you can have a triangle, you can have a square. But the general name for all of them is called a shape. So that's what I'm talking about right now. Basically, is abstract class. Abstract. Then you have what we call the concrete class. That's the main implementation of the abstract class. Concrete class. So this is the basic theory that we're going to use to really describe classes. So like I said, we're going to start writing the codes of a class. So to write, let's start with the class shape. Abstract class shape. Okay, an abstract class is basically a general name for something. A general name for something. So you can have different types of that thing within that general name. So when we're talking about shapes, like I said earlier, we can have circle, we can have square, we can have rectangle. So we can have different shapes. But when you're writing an abstract class, like I said earlier, a class has two parts. A class has what we call the attributes, which are the external characteristics of the class. Then it has the methods, which are like the actions. So, but for this particular abstract class, so because we are working with abstract classes, we are not going to implement it basically. We use what we call get. So get area is a get method, double get perimeter. So now if you want to implement this class called shape, class shape, is going to borrow from the general name, which is shape. So now I want to create a particular class called square. Remember, shape is the general name, square is a particular shape. So I'm going to extend it from the general class shape. So I'm making this square from the general class shape. So a class will have what I call the attributes. So double so remember I said this is a general name for shapes. So I want to get a particular shape now. So square. When we're looking at square, how many sides does a square have? A square will have length and width. So double length, double width, then this class we have what we call a constructor. So let me take it from the beginning. A general class is what we use as an abstract class, which can cover different types of the same thing within the class. Then we have, when we're talking about a particular class, a class will have a name, a class will have attributes, a class will have methods, and a class will have what we call constructors. So we have a general class called shape, and this general class has methods, two methods, area and perimeter. So the general class, which we normally call an abstract class, normally have what we call methods. And the methods are, like I said earlier, methods is what a class can do. So when we want to create a particular type of that general class, which we now call the class, we use this extend keyword. Extend is like coming from the general class. Triangle is a shape, rectangle is a shape, circle is a shape. So now that's where this extend keyword comes into play. So the next thing we want to talk about is the attributes of the class. So the length, just like you have a square, if you want to do normal mathematics, you do length times width. Then after it, the next thing we talk about is a constructor. A construction site is where they are building houses. You see the people that are actually doing the work. So this is like what this particular line of code here is doing. So it's actually the constructor. So now, because we are taking it from the general class, which we call the abstract class, we normally use the keyword at override. So when we use this at override, what it will want us to do is to define this method, to define these two methods that we have described up to. And at this point, we are going to create a function here. So this double will use a keyword called gets, and we call on area. At this point, we're going to make use of anonymous function. So area is equals to length times width. Okay. So the next method we have there is perimeter. Double get perimeter. So we apply anonymous function. So it will be 2 bracket length plus width. So 2 bracket length plus width. Why is this giving us this error? Okay. When we're constructing the constructor, a constructor demands some things from us. The first thing that the constructor demands is what we call the this keyword. This. It demands the required keyword. That's if you want to make use of the attribute required. Then it requires the this keyword. This dot length, this dot width. And this error goes away. So our error should be gone. Okay. Perimeter. So that is our first class. So let me recap what I did here. We first of all created a class called the abstract class, which is the general class. Then within that general class, which we have a shape, we have two methods inside it. So a shape will have an area and a shape will have a perimeter. The next thing we looked at was to create a particular class within the shape. And that's why we wanted to create the square class. Now the square class is going to extend, which means that it's coming from this general class. And as it's extending, a class will have attributes, constructor, and methods. So the attributes of a square is length and width. And also, after the attributes, we have the constructors. Now, constructor requires two words for it to work. The first one is the required keyword. The second one is this keyword. And if you look carefully, what is actually inside this constructor is what is getting from the attributes. So this is the length, this dot width. So it's just picking it from there. Then we now have what we call the override. The override helps us to pick the methods here. So now, remember we used the get keyword in this abstract class. So we now use get area and get perimeter. Now we have to use this arrow function, length times width. And the perimeter is 2 bracket length plus width. This gives us the class. Now, when we want to use this class that we've created, we come here and we do what we instantiate the class square first square equals to square. So you notice that when we wrote square, it's demanding that we give the length and the width. So because this length and width that is demanding here is what we call the attributes, and this is what we did here. So we give it a length. Square basically have the same length and the same width. We give it a length and width. Now we want to find the area of the square. We use double area equals to first square dot area. Double perimeter. We want to get the perimeter, we say first square dot perimeter. So remember I said a class is like the general template. You've created the first square. Now we want to create another square. Square second square. Remember the first square was 5, 5, so we want to make this second square 6, 6. So we do the same thing. We copy this. I think we have to use area 1, perimeter 1. Let's use area 1, perimeter 1. This one will be area 2, perimeter 2. So let us print the area of the first square as area 1, and let us print perimeter 1. So let's print it now and see what it's going to give us. So remember I said The first area, 5 times 5 is 25. And the second area, okay, perimeter, the first perimeter is 5 plus 5, which is 10, times 2. And that will give us 20. So now let's go for the let's go and print the second square. Print second perimeter. Okay, perimeter 2. So the area 2, perimeter 2. So let's run it now. So let's run it now and see what it's going to give us. 6 times 6 gives us 36, and 6 plus 6, which is 12, times 2 is giving us 24. So we can actually make sentences here. We can actually make sentences with this. Remember, I said when you want to get a value, like you add a dollar sign. So the area of the first square is, so we can actually do the same thing here. We just copy this, copy and paste. So this time we're looking at perimeter, no longer area. The perimeter of the first square is perimeter 1. Okay, let's see what's going to give us. So the area of the first square is 25, and the perimeter of the first square is 25. So we can actually repeat the same thing here. Okay, I'll just copy this. I'll come here and paste it. But this time around, I'm going to use second. Here I'm going to use second. This one will be area 2, and this one will be perimeter 2. Oh, perimeter. I was wrong. Perimeter 2. Perimeter. I was wrong. So perimeter 2. So I'm gonna run it now. Let me run it and see what's going to give us. So the area of the first square is 25. The perimeter of the first square is 20. The area of the second square is 36. The perimeter of the second square is 24. Now, let us try something interesting. Let us try a circle. So class circle. So the circle is going to The circle is going to extend shape. So the circle normally have a radius. The next thing, remember, while we're creating a class, we create the name of the class. Then if the class has a parent class, if the class has where it's coming from, we use the word extend. In this particular case, a circle is a shape. So we normally use the is relationship. So anything that is something, it can be extended by that thing it is. So a circle is a shape. So The next thing we do is to write the attributes. Like I say, attributes are like the characteristics of that particular thing. Then after the attributes, we create the constructor circle. So while creating the constructor, we use the required keyword if attributes we want to work with is actually required. So required, and next thing we're going to use is this dot radius. So if you look very critically, it is actually picking this. So this is picking the attributes. Remember, at this point we call it attributes. At this point we call it constructor. So now that we're done with the constructor, because this class is actually coming out from something which is shape, we are going to override these two methods there. So override, we use the at keyword override. So double, we use the get keyword. Now next thing we are going to use is the name of the method, area. We use the arrow key, which is normally used in an anonymous function. Get area. So the area of a circle is pi r square. So we're going to use 3.14. Pi is 3.14. So times radius times radius, because the r square is radius times radius. Now I have a question for you. So what's the perimeter of a circle? 2 pi r, 2 times radius, 2 times 3.14. So we're using 3.14 as our pi, times radius. So we're done with creating this circle. So like I said earlier, the class is like the template or the blueprint or a mode that we can use to create as many of its kind as possible. That is, as many of its kind. So we're going to create 2 different circles with different radius. So the first circle we are going to create, you come here, circle. So we create the first circle, circle 1, circle. So it's asking us for the radius. So this circle is going to have a radius of 5. So now we want to know the area of this circle. Or let me just use C1 area. That's standing for circle 1 area equals to circle 1 dot area. So let's look at the perimeter. Double C1 perimeter. So when you want to work with more than one word, the next word is going to give me a capital letter. So C1 perimeter, circle C1 area dot perimeter, circle 1 dot perimeter. So now it's time to print. Want to make a sense, the area of the first circle is, I add my $sign, C1 area, then I close it. So I copy this. the perimeter of the first circle is C1 perimeter. So let's run it and see what's going to give us. I want to give space between the first part and the second part. So I'll just put it here. Print empty space. So let's run it now. So the area of the first circle is 8.5. But it's telling me that the perimeter of the first circle is at 1.400. There's given us a lot of decimal places. Do you have any question? We're going to stop here for today. It's already 9. So next week we'll continue with class 6.